Hello and hello and welcome, Overwatch League fans. Hello,
Hello.
hello,
Hello.
hello. This is an
Hello.
Overwatch channel now. So
Because
we're
he
gonna,
can't do DPL stuff, so...
yeah, I did too much in a short period of time, and now I don't want to anymore. So we're moving on. Anyways,
Okay.
preseason rankings. What are we doing here? Are we doing strength of the teams, or where we think they're gonna finish?
You know what? Let's do strength of the teams. Because I think
Alright.
with APAC being a thing,
Power rankings.
things can get a bit mixed up, you know, like... Because there's 6 teams in one region,
Yeah,
and then
and they all
13 in
suck.
another.
Oh,
What?
they
No,
don't all
no.
suck. There's just
No,
most
no,
of them
no.
suck.
No. One of them's probably going to farm the other ones, and then, you know, they'll have the best record in the league just because of
It's
that.
the Chengdu Hunters.
Yeah.
Anyways, we want to start from the top or the bottom? Start from the middle, maybe?
Let's just start at the bottom.
Alright,
Start at
Vegas all the way at the bottom. Got it.
Yeah,
Next?
Vegas Eternal, and then we can have a tier break, maybe.
Yeah.
Is that toxic?
Hey, no
okay.
disrespect. Zero disrespect. I actually like the Vegas guys. It's just that they're worse than everyone else.
Yeah,
It'd be how
like
it do.
they kept the same roster from last year basically, and like they weren't really like they weren't put in a position to succeed. I feel like, which is kind of unfair to them.
Yeah.
But they also didn't really upgrade from like this season to the next, which makes it hard to believe in them, to be honest.
Yep. And for that reason, I'm out.
Yeah, they're the worst team, I think.
All right.
So
Who else is in the conversation down here? There's like Valiant,
definitely.
New York, maybe.
They're in the
Guangzhou,
conversation,
maybe. Yeah,
I
forget who's on Guangzhou.
It's the same roster from last year, like to end off the season, but they finished like what 4-2 in the last stage, and like during Jotes they were also not terrible.
Oh yeah, their backline's really good actually.
Their backline's good.
They can chill for a little bit. Oh.
Yeah.
See, New York, we have. Yeah, they can go in this conversation.
I'd have them above Valiant probably, just because I think New York has a bit more star power. Like Valiant have Seeker, and Seeker was pretty good on Boston last season when they needed him to play. I rate CJ as well pretty highly. I think he's a really good flex support. And then
I like Nos on the May. He looked
really
good on that.
He's a really I think he's a strong flex DPS. But then the real MVP is Paintbrush. He's the 6th player, the coach, the social media manager. Yeah, he dude, that guy does everything. He's the real MVP.
Yeah, and if they need him, he'll run it down on Reinhardt, you know.
I don't know about Reinhardt, but
I mean, we've seen supports on Reinhardt before, right?
Supports on Reinhardt?
Haven't we? Or is it just Winston? Because we've definitely seen Winston. Okay, maybe Paintbrush Winston then.
Okay, Winston, yeah, above Valiant, I'd think about Excelsior, I think, there.
What do you think about the Titans here? I think Titans is like higher quality than both of these.
Okay, like
Shanghai can come down here in the conversation.
Okay, so here's the thing with Shanghai. They're Fleta tank, right? Yeah. Gangnam Jin's back on Lucio.
Yeah.
DM, former sniper. I think DM will actually be kind of okay.
They're running quad DPS, but like...
Yeah, quad DPS plus Gangnam Jin on Lucio. So, yeah. But I think Hisu plus Viper, just as a DPS core,
they're both
nuts.
super good.
Yeah, as well as I think Moon is a very good coach. So, I think that will keep them afloat somewhat. Compared to, like, the Titans, where I don't really believe in their coaching staff as much. I think they only have Ascroft, I think. But they do have a stacked team. Like they have a stacked DPS line. I'll just say that.
Yeah, the DPS are definitely really good, but Shanghai's also really good, you know. So
yeah.
do we think Punk is better than Fleta on tank? Yes.
Yeah, I think you have to.
DM Gangnam Jin versus Faith Crimzo.
Faith Crimzo have pre-existing synergy as well as I think that's very strong. Their DPS, like I think Titans are carried by their DPS a bit, but the rest of their team honestly is not bad. And then Shanghai, they're a bit weaker player-wise, but I think they have a coaching staff difference because they have Bebe, who's a player coach. He can play flex DPS or flex support, although I'm sure Gangnam Jin would not mind playing on it once in a while, you know? So that can be a thing. But yeah, Fleta tank, interesting.
Yep. Now,
where would you compare these to New York, though? Because I think both are actually better than New York. Despite
agree.
New York having like... New York has some really strong pieces, though. I think their DPS line, while maybe not as dynamic as the Titans and the Dragons, like Fitz, Shockwave, Psycho's really, really strong. Like, we know Fitz is good, and then Shockwave and Psycho have shown flashes.
Yeah.
Kellen like kind of had a bad year last year, but I do think he showed some flashes. And then they have a 4-headed support line, so...
Yeah, they have Lep Creative.
Yeah, and then they also have Haley and Anian. Anian, I think.
Anian.
Her name is Anian. I'm too I'm not really sure how to pronounce their name, but yeah.
Anyways, it's like they're good, you know, but a lot of teams are good.
Yeah, you have to be great. Also, we don't know the Excelsior coaches yet, but I think they revealed who it was. Like, just the players were just like, hey, this is who our coach was. I kind of forgot who they said it was, but technically not revealed yet.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I feel like this is probably about right. Vancouver, Shanghai, New York, Valiant, and then Vegas.
I'd agree with that for now, I'd say. I really rate Vancouver's DPS line. Like, Aspire Sugar Free, they cover everything, and they're also both really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of the easy half of the power rankings, if I'm honest. The top is going to be really hard. I'm just looking at all these teams, and they all deserve top 5, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But there can only be 5 in the top 5, etc. So the next teams I want to start looking at is London, Charge, Infernal, probably.
I'd look at the Dynasty before the Infernal.
We can put the Dynasty in there as well.
I think both of them are kind of like in this next echelon a little bit.
Would Washington join that group?
I think Washington would too. People hated on Washington's roster. I really don't think it's that bad.
Yeah. So anyways, let's look at Washington first. Flora Alpha Yi, kind of sick. Ben Best Mirror, a little bit less sick. And then FT God Teru, which is like, I don't know. We'll see.
It's a lot to pick apart. So in the Pro-Am we saw, like, even though it's a Pro-Am, you really shouldn't put too much stock into it. But Bembest looked really, really good on the Winston. Like, he was kind of insane.
Yeah.
And then Flora Alfie, Alfie was like in the Rookie of the Year conversation for the first half of last year. Like, he was that guy. And then Flora has obviously shown flashes of being a really strong hit scan. I think the support line, though, like, if you do have concerns with it, they are pretty valid, because Teru, we kind of saw him like play a flanking Kiriko style in the playoffs, which I think he was able to get away with it because he's obviously a mechanical freak and everything. but it's just a very aggressive play style paired with FD God, who's known as being like the aggressive like Lucio, just going for all these plays. So there can kind of be somewhat of a dynamic there that can be exploited, I feel like.
W Mouse and One, the team.
Yeah,
it's all right, Let's look at Soul Dynasty now.
Soul Dynasty.
Prophet and Prophet, I really rate as a DPS line.
I do too. Prophet, obviously, he's like the people who say like, oh, Prophet's like washed or anything. Last year he was a role star still. Like the first time he was a role star, mind you, and he was still like, honestly, like him and Smurf were carrying this team. It was
watching
like,
those
insane.
games was like, the Winston Tracer was so clean, so coordinated in the early season, especially.
Prophet,
like, wow.
And then the ability to like, hey, go onto the brig during the Jotes meta and everything, and even play Kiriko during the playoffs. Like they kind of got tossed in the map that he played it, but like he still did it. So
like his team is confident in him, which is the main takeaway there. I'm not gonna be like, oh, he played Kiriko for a map, that means he's a Kiriko player, They thought it was their best chance of winning, which means they really put a lot of stock in Prophet as a player. So like, that's cool. Prophet, the new guy, Lil P, this guy is like a mechanical freak on the Widow, like hard hit scan kind of thing.
I think a really good comparison to him is like Ons. Like Ons coming in, like just kind of being a Widow one, like not a Widow one trick, but like very skilled at Widow and kind of needing to grow into these other roles. Because on O2 Blast, Prophet didn't really play. He didn't have to play too much, to be honest, because O2 Blast just had a stacked roster. But when he did play the Widow, he looked really, really strong on it. So
yeah, for sure.
He will have to grow into like, because this is only a 5-man roster for now. You obviously do need a 6th player, but we don't know if they're just gonna slap a coach on and just say like, hey, this is our 6th player, and just roll with a 5-man team. Because like realistically, if Prophet can like play, like if they can find the role like as a full-time DPS for him, then like they honestly never need to sub, to be honest. So
yeah. I mean, Void as well as your solo tank. This guy has played a little bit of the main tanks last year for Shanghai and looked okay. It wasn't really the best thing in the world, but on the off tanks, that's his bread and butter.
That's his. Yeah, Diva, he's a very strong Diva.
Sigma. I mean, for Diva and Sigma, when they were meta, Void was considered one of the best of all time on those heroes.
Yeah, so, during like season 3 and season 4, he was kind of just he was up there with like the best off tanks. Like it was him and Hanbin, honestly, just destroying the league.
Yeah. And then, what do you think about this backline, Lee Soo-min, Krillin?
So, I actually think Lee Soo-min is a very strong flex support player, and I think he's Kiriko in specific. I kind of rate him similarly to like Babel in that like they're both really strong Kiriko players and they have like other strong flex supports. Krillin we saw last year on the Justice before Vigilante was of age. Like Krillin was kind of filling the flex support roles and he was doing really well there. He is being pushed onto the Lucio now, which I have a bit of concern with because although he did play it for a bit last year, like when they needed to switch from double flex to like a more traditional support line, like it is a bit of a concern for me that Krillin is going to be like the Gangnam General. So,
well, I actually really rate Lee Soo-min. I think he's gonna pop off this year. Krillin, I see as sort of like a Lastro type deal, where he's a flex DP or flex support that can play the main supports as well.
Yeah.
So like this duo will be good at double flex. They'll be good at traditional main support, flex support comps, and they don't have to sub out their players to switch between them, which a lot of teams can't do. So that could be an advantage for them. That being said, Krillin's like individual skill might be a little bit lower than some of those other players that are the Hyperflex supports. So it's kind of like, it's good to have that flexibility, but the actual quality of the flexing is my only concern. You know?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because, like, if Krillin needed to play, like, let's say Zenyatta or Ana, I have no concern with him there. I think
he'll be great.
He has been great on those two characters. But, like, Lucio and everything, we'll kind of have to wait and see how it's been going. You know, he's had time to practice and grind Lucio. And, like, the other main supports, such as, like, Brig. I guess Mercy. I don't think Overwatch League players really grind Mercy, let's be honest. But
yeah.
I guess Lifeweaver, the new support character, is kind of seen as a main support, so maybe having flex support knowledge and having that mechanical skill can translate somewhat.
I'm not too sure, because in the Lifeweaver tournament, I saw some Lifeweaver Bap, some Lifeweaver Lucio, some Lifeweaver Moira.
Towards the beginning of the tournament, we saw a lot of Lifeweaver Lucio, and then teams just switched to, like, not Lucio Lifeweaver.
Okay. His healing of it.
Lifeweaver's healing output just wasn't enough, I feel like, especially in like the Ram mirror. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think Soul Dynasty, and not to mention Toby was a very strong coach last year, so I think he can continue that. And who knows, if Krillin's really struggling on the Lucio, just sub back Toby in.
Yeah, that's crazy. Anyways, let's compare them to the other Soul team, the Infernal. So Zest MN3, crazy DPS duo. These guys were both like really good last year. Zest was in the MVP voting. I mean, he was never gonna win, but he made it that far. You know, he was on the ballot. MN3 really showed some exceptional performances.
He showed some flashes.
It wasn't every game, but when he was on, he was like super good.
Yeah, there were times where he was the best player in the server against like the Dragons or the Dynasty, and like against Lip and Prophet and stuff. He looked like the best player in the server. It's just being able to do that at a consistent rate.
Yeah.
That's kind of his thing. And I also think sharing playtime with Carpe somewhat, like, because you do want to play Carpe and everything, because like that's your leader and everything, but MN3 just showed so many flashes, and maybe now he will have more consistent playtime to the point where he can kind of show that he's a very strong hit scan player.
Yeah, I have no problem with the DPS duo.
I think this is a top tier DPS line, even compared to like some of these other like top teams. The DPS line of Inferno really carries them, I feel like.
Yeah. So let's look at Mag as the solo tank. This guy has had some of the most hype going into the league out of any tank when he was new to the league. And he just never has shown that in the league. Like, he pounded contenders.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, you know? Just kind of been alright. Average in the league.
I think in the league, like, he was on the Justice, and they were kind of
I didn't do him any favors. Yeah.
Yeah, but when he had to, like, I remember like the first 2 stages of Season 4 on the Winston, he looked really strong. It's just that the team couldn't put together wins. Like, he was going head to head with like Fearless and stuff on the Winston. Like, he was putting in performances there. Since then, hasn't really done much. Even when he, like, I wouldn't count like him getting traded to Boston as like his fault or anything, because like, you know, Justice was kind of falling apart. He only played a couple maps for Boston, so
before being consumed by Punk once more.
Yeah, because Punk is him.
Anyways,
as a solo tank, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but
the Winston and the Junker Queen are like clear strengths of his. Outside of that, I have big doubts. I guess the Rhine as well.
Yeah, we'll just have to see how he is on the off tanks and everything, just as a tank player overall. He did have a lot of hype though, and this guy, like, was at one point like the tank player to pick up and everything. So he can definitely do it.
Right. Fixa skewed as the support line. It's okay, you know?
Even though, like, we haven't really seen skewed as a full-time flex support, I definitely think this is an upgrade over last year for them. Because they had Aim God, and while Aim God looked solid, he was, like, consistent, I think skewed just adds another dynamic to their team.
I think
because he is a
skewed is just better on every hero, right?
Yeah, I feel that too. Like, because we didn't really get to see skewed play too much as a traditional flex support, which, like, to be fair to him, he was playing with Shu on his team, and skewed also had a really strong brig, so they wanted to keep him around just in case, because he could flex over to the brig or other flex supports if needed. So yeah, we get to see skewed as a full-time starter now, which I think is really exciting, because when he needed to play the flex supports, he was a very strong player. So
for sure. Yeah, I want to see skewed as the main starter. That's something I want to watch this season. Fixa, I feel like we kind of know what he's capable of, and it's like, it's okay, you know?
It's okay. He's not the most flashy player or anything, but he'll get the job done, you know, as a consistent main support.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just having consistency there. I feel like this team is very carried by their DPS line, so being able to enable them is going to be the key in them winning games.
Yeah. So, like, Justice, Soul, and the other Soul team, they all kind of have crazy DPS lines. But I think Infernal is the best out of the three.
DPS, yeah, it has to be Infernal. Even though, like, there's Profit and everything, the Infernal DPS line just showed so much last year. And Zest was, very solid.
I would say the rest of the Dynasty I like better than the rest of the Infernal by a pretty significant margin.
I'd agree there. I think Tank, definitely. I think I'm more confident in Void. We don't really know how Void is on main tanks, because, like, he had Fate on his team all these years. He never really had to, like, grind Winston or anything, so we'll get to see there. The support line I'm a bit more questionable of, because I think Lee Soo-min is very solid. I think Krillin is very solid. It's just Krillin needing to be like in the Lastro Gangnam Jin role. I'm not sure how that'll be. And then also seeing how Skewed is, because Skewed definitely showed flashes of being a very strong player. It's just he never really got the chance to do that on Clads. So, yeah.
So we want to talk about the Charge here?
I would honestly put the Charge above these teams, maybe. And that's just because of what we saw at the end of the season when they had this specific, like, roster on their...
Yeah, Jimmy Choi Se-won, Piggy, Xerneas, Faraway.
Yeah.
There's no real weak link there. Like, they're all really solid players.
I would agree. Yeah, I think Piggy really is a strong tank player. And, like, he can play the main tanks if needed. His Winston's not the best in the world, but he definitely can show things on it. Last year was kind of unfair to him because... You know, they figured out Doom was, like, they wanted to play Dante on Doom, and then they kind of just stuck behind that the whole season, so...
Yeah.
Like, ever since going to Charge, like, first he benched Krong, which I'm sad about still, but Piggy was, like, he has shown to be a very consistent tank player on multiple different tank heroes.
The backline, Xerneas Faraway, is probably the best backline in this group here.
I would agree.
I don't think it's that close.
I think Faraway got, what, like 20? He got a lot of votes to become a role star. The Chinese Overwatch community thinks Faraway is very, very good. The rest of the world doesn't really see it that way, but they, like, a lot of people do recognize that he's a very strong player still.
I mean, we're not throwing disrespect on him. We're just there's probably better supports out there, but
yeah,
love
for
him,
sure.
So,
but I do think Faraway is a very strong player still. And then Xerneas, formerly known as Yveltal, he has shown to be very strong at multiple supports, main and flex supports. So I have no concerns with him either.
Yeah, you mostly know him as the Brig Mercy, right? But
Yeah,
his
Brig
Lucio
Mercy
has improved over the years, and
Yeah. And when he's needed to play like the Zen and everything, like he does put in the work on that. So
right, Jimmy had like a kind of breakout performance last year. He was really strong towards the end of the season, especially. Choice one has looked great since he joined the league. It's just his team has never been quite up to speed, but now he is surrounded by like the better pieces, like towards the end of last season and now going into this season. So I really rate this team. Yeah,
I would too.
I can
yeah.
see
I
why
think
you think it's better than the other four in this.
I also think it's kind of like not recency bias, but like from what we have seen from the specific roster, like contrary to what Vegas didn't really look good with their new roster. This roster, which was put together like really quickly in the middle of the season, was able to put together wins.
Yeah, weren't they pushing for playoffs towards the end?
I think they were up 2-0 in the clinching game.
Yeah, and then it'd be how it be, you know. It sucks.
They almost there, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd have both Seoul teams, Guangzhou, and then Washington. We also mentioned was probably in that area.
Yeah, and the last one we have to talk about is London. Now, London had a great last season, but I can't put them above any of the top 9. Like, oh my god.
I would agree with that, yeah. Just because
they're probably floating around the charge area. Maybe
I think that's
a little bit better. I don't know, though. So, the changes from last season, they picked up Sky Reaper and Lethal.
Mm-hmm.
And they dropped Shax.
Shax and Poco as well.
Poco, yeah.
As well as Khan technically, but Khan didn't really play as much, so
yeah,
probably don't notice that. But yeah, London, I feel like last season they were able to put together a lot of wins because they were a lot different than other teams. Like they played Reinhardt, they played the Mei, and even like when the meta was against them and everything, like they still found ways to make it work and everything. And even in playoffs, like people forget, but they were almost to the winners finals and everything. They just needed to beat Houston.
Yeah, they were like top 4, right?
No, I think it's technically top 5 to 6 because once they went to the losers bracket, they were fed to Hangzhou.
Okay.
Yeah, the spark got them.
Makes sense.
But yeah, I would agree though. Like they didn't really make any upgrades. I feel like Lethal didn't really put together the best pro-am performance. I still rate him very highly though. So I think his tracer is solid, and I think his just general hit scan. And then Sky Rippa, he was on the Titans last season, I believe, and he did show some flashes there, but really no consistent playtime. I don't think he'll really get that as much here because I think Landon is a very strong flex support. But yeah, what do you think about this roster though?
I think Sky Rippa's place is for the double flex when they run the Ana Zen or the Bap Zen, whatever. Lethal, I think he's pretty good. He's been in contenders for a while and he's shown good performances there. Doesn't always translate to the league, but we'll have to see on that part. The main core of the London Spitfire being Hottie, Sparker, Backbone, Admiral Landon. We know this combination of 5 can win games. They've shown success. It's just everyone has upgraded significantly, it feels like.
Yeah.
So, like,
I also think that Christopher is a very strong coach for London, and
that
like
guy
he
is
won
so
Coach of
smart.
the Year and everything for a good reason. Like he is a very strong coach, so I can see London finishing higher than we project just based off of that and just their teamwork and everything. That's kind of what they rely on.
Yeah, for sure.
But if the meta's not going their way, I can see things going pretty bad for them. I think the main thing though is Sparker is kind of their star player, and people would want to say like, oh, Hottie, because he's the Reinhardt and everything, and they played around him and whatnot. I just think Sparker is one of the best European DPS players we've ever seen, and allowing him to shine and pop off is going to be what's key to keeping this team successful.
Yeah, that's big facts. Alright, so for the order of these teams, do we think London or Charge is at the top of this list?
I'd have to say London. I think I have so much respect for Christopher. I think
I think you have to.
He's done a lot with like no one really thinking that he would. So
Oh, bark?
yeah, 1 sec.
All good. I don't know. Part of me wants to put a tier break between those right there.
You're not sharing the screen.
Yeah,
so
I know. London and Guangzhou, tier break, and then both of the Seoul teams in Justice. I don't know though. Justice did look pretty good. Maybe the tier break is not warranted.
I don't think the tier break is warranted. Maybe below those teams and everything, but
yeah. So Washington and both Souls. I think Dynasty is better than Infernal, but that's like a close one for me. Justice, I'm not really sure how to rate them against the other two.
I'd say
tough.
I'd probably put Justice lower than both Soul teams. I just think the DPS lines of both Soul teams, as good as the Justice DPS line is, those two are actually able to like outshine them a little bit.
I agree.
And I don't know. I think Gedamaze is a really good coach though, so I think they can finish higher than they're expected to, but I don't think they're stronger teams right now than either Soul team.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, now you want to move on to the actual like impossible to tell who's the best.
Yeah,
these top 9 are so good.
Yeah.
We have Atlanta, Boston, Dallas, Florida, Hangzhou, Houston, Glads, Shock, and Toronto. Oh, they're so good. What are we thinking here?
You know, I'm just going to follow what Plat Chat said a little bit, and I kind of agree with it. I think Toronto is going to be the 9th team here. And it's obviously not because, like, they're bad or anything. They're obviously really damn good. It's just, I think their team, compared to these other teams, maybe falls a bit short. I don't know, though.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know. I don't know who I would put them over is the thing, you know?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at them versus other teams, and I'm trying to see, like, who I'd rather have Toronto over. I like a lot of their players, not a Bioshock fan or anything, but I think they have a lot of strong players. I think Speedily is going to show a lot of people like why he was so looked at as a rookie coming in. Yeah. Like he effectively just benched Nero. So, I think that was kind of the plan all along. But yeah, he kind of just benched him. Hydron is a very strong hit scam player. We kind of saw it a little bit in the Pro-Am. I think his Tracer is also really insane. So when they wanted to go to the Tracer Echo stuff, kind of how they did on American Tornado, they could kind of do that. Their support line, I think, is really strong. Ultraviolet was looked at as a like a Rookie of the Year candidate coming in, like second behind Proper. That's how good he was. And OG, kind of his support partner. They've worked together a lot, and OG kind of showed he was a really strong main support. And then Sir Mayed, he's mechanically a cracked flex support player who is a bit aggressive, but he does do a lot of damage. So, yeah.
So facts.
But I do think that the best part of Toronto would probably be Kaluge to me. And that's kind of how I viewed this like AT core a lot. I think Kaluge is just such a smart player. And like he needed to pick up Winston in like a month against like all these Overwatch League teams and looked okay last year. Like I believe in him as a tank player. And even though he won't play ball, like they'll find ways to make it work.
Yeah, I think Kaluge and Hydron are definitely the leaders of this team in a way.
Yeah. I also think Sam, if he needs to play, he is a really strong player. It's just he's kind of put in situations a lot where like he kind of just subs in for a map and then, you know.
Yeah, the Hanzo specifically is where I think
his Hanzo's crazy.
He can shine.
Yeah. But yeah, his he can play a lot of different DPS characters. Like his Sojourn was really strong last year, I feel too, when he had to play it.
Yeah, for sure.
But compared to these other teams, I probably would have to put them ninth, as much as I wouldn't want to, just because
yeah, that's fair enough.
These other teams are insane. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Who next though? Who's on the chopping block? At this point, I'm starting to look at maybe Glad's Fuel Uprising.
I think it's fair to look at those teams, yeah.
So let's put them together here.
Who do you want to go across first?
Let's do Glad's, because they literally just made finals of the Pro-Am, right? And they looked really good while doing it, so it's like tough.
Yeah.
But it is a preseason, so...
Yeah. I think they have a very strong coaching staff. I think Face, Hunter, and Smash, just as a combo, like, they're all really, really good. And that's kind of the reason why they kind of won 2 stages last year, just at the beginning. As much as, like, Reiner would want to admit, like, hey, coaching doesn't matter. But, yeah, I think their coaching staffs are really strong, so that's the thing.
Yeah, the main thing is that Kevster is that guy.
Yeah, Kevster is very good at Overwatch. He is easily a top 5 player in the world. The best European player.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevster is very strong. And then rounding out...
He's like a very firm top 3 DPS in the world.
I would agree with that, yeah.
And then, who's surrounding him here? We have Kai and Yaki. So Kai has kind of fallen off since his peaks earlier seasons, but he did have a strong performance in the Pro-Am. But that was surprising, which is the main takeaway for me anyways. You didn't expect Kai to do that, but he did. So like, do you give him credit for it? Or do you say, well, we knew that Hydron was going to be really good, so he was really good, and so all's well. We didn't think Kai was going to be that good, but he was really good. So are you rating him higher now? Or is it more like, that's a surprise, I don't know if he's going to keep that up? That's where I'm questioning a little bit.
I think it was kind of unfortunate for Kai last year because of how the meta just kind of worked out. Like towards I remember like a stage 2, once it started, he was highly regarded as like a very strong Sojourn, and the way he kind of played Sojourn was kind of like a sit back and just play a sniper. That's kind of what Kai's thing is. He's a very good sniper.
Yeah.
But once Sojourn began to become a more dynamic like damage hero, like sliding in and everything, the usage of the E and all that, I think that's where Kai started to slip a little bit, because he is more of like
Just click the head,
Yeah, click ahead sniper kind of thing. That's why like he's still really, really good at Widow, and when they needed him to play Widow, he was really solid there.
I remember last season in the mid-season madness, I think it was.
Yeah.
Him and Shy were just deadlifting matches on Widow.
Yeah.
Circuit Royale was always a treat to watch, and the what team was he on? Atlanta? They would always pick Circuit if they could, and Kai would just farm, and it was so awesome to watch.
I agree. Yeah.
It's like he definitely has the mechanical chops. We'll just have to see if he can keep that up going into the season. Yaki has always been one of the best players on his teams. It's just his teams have sucked balls. Now he finally has good teammates around him. Will he deliver? What do you think?
I think he definitely can, just because a lot of pressure's off him. Yaki was kind of always known as like this hyperflex. He could play anything you needed. He plays the carry hero for you. Now though, it's a team where Kevster's that guy. Kevster's never getting subbed out. Even though like Yaki and Kai are both really good. Like if that were its own DPS line, that'd be a pretty solid DPS line. But there's a Kevster there. Both of them are not going to play together. That's just kind of how it is. So now Yaki can kind of focus on like specific characters. Like I know he played a lot of Tracer. His Genji's also really solid. So if needed to, like if Kevster's going over to like another character and they're subbing Yaki in, that's kind of his role on the team. I feel like it's just being able to support Kevster as the main DPS.
Yeah, in comps like the Echo Tracer, which we saw a little bit of, you definitely want to run Kevster Yaki, stuff like that. I feel like most of the time it's going to be Kai Kevster, just from how metas tend to shake out.
Yeah, a lot of metas feel like you really need like that like pure hit scan, and besides like I guess like what Overwatch League Season 4, we didn't see that too much like raw hit scan, but other than that,
historically, you've seen a lot of hit scan in the league.
You've seen a lot of hit scan, and I think it is safe to assume that if Kevster figures out like, hey, I'm really good on Sojourn or Cass or whatever, then yeah, I can see Yaki playing, because Kevster's just a very strong player, and they're going to kind of put him on the heroes he needs to in order to carry the hardest. So
yeah, right.
I rate this DPS line though.
I think Kevster's good, yeah. So now there's the elephant in the room, the Dante solo tank.
What do you think of it?
I think he has a really elite Doomfist and Ramatra. He looked really great on the Ramatra during the Pro-Am. The Winston could use some work. His primal mechanics are excellent. Like, that's one thing about Dante. His mechanics are never the question. It's the decision making and like stuff like that. So given enough time, I think he's smart enough to figure out the tank role, and you can like really see improvements in his Winston already because he's been playing that a lot. He played it in the grand finals, playoffs stuff, and like it looked okay there, and then it looked a little bit better now in the Pro-Am. Like there's definitely fights where the Glads were losing, and then Dante props Primal, kills both the backline, and like they turn it. It's like he can just take over fights on the monkey. So whatever he puts his mind to, I feel like he can grind out. His Diva has looked pretty good. I don't think we've seen a Zarya in the league, but I mean, I've seen his stream and stuff, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
You know, he can play the Zarya. He plays it very smartly. I don't know.
I think Dante, like you said, it's the elephant in the room. This can be a very high reward thing, because I think the way that Dante is as a tank player, like it doesn't like if he can't figure out traditional tanks like Winston or like Wrecking Ball or anything, the Glads are going to figure out a way to put Dante on a character that he feels most comfortable with. And you kind of saw that like throughout last season, like the Outlaws knew that they wanted to play Dante on Doom, even though it was never meta or anything. Like, that's the guy they wanted to play. And so I think with a full off season of being able to grind tank and go into the season expected to be like the tank player, I think that's going to help out Dante a lot. And we can see a really strong performance from him. Obviously, he's not historically known as a tank player, so I can see how this can fail, but I think Dante is a very strong and smart player to the point where I think he will figure things out in the end. So
the potential is there. We're gonna have to see if he can reach that, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, if he does manage to figure out all these things, he can be one of the best flex, like, hyperflex tanks in the league, feels like. It's just, as of right now, he doesn't have that, like, firepower on anything besides Doom or Matra. But,
I feel that,
you can see him working on it, so by the end of the season, he'll be great. Now this back line, Funny Astro, Lastro, Babel. Now, before the Pro-Am, I would have thought your main starters are going to be Lastro and Funny Astro, and Babel will come in for double flex. But Babel has been starting, and he has looked so good. So good.
I agree with that, yes. So it's kind of looking like... Not to throw out any like tags or anything, but Babel's filling the shoe role, like of being never subbed out, and then Lastro comes in to fill a skewed role of like, hey, I can play the main support if needed, but like I can also play the flex support if needed. So it just allows for a lot of flexibility there. Obviously, compared to like shoe skewed, a lot of people will say the support line is downgraded. I can definitely see that argument there.
It is, but it's still really good. That's what I think.
I still, I agree. I think it's still really good. Babel has looked very strong on multiple flex support heroes. I thought his Kiriko was really strong, but now his Ana's, like in the Pro-Am specifically, his Ana and his Bap look pretty good. Like, I can't really complain with those. And then Lastro, we know Lastro last year, he had to play multiple roles for his team. A lot of main support. He could play the flex support if needed, and he's just a very talented support player. Like I almost don't want to give him like a title of like, oh, he's a main support or a flex support. He's just a support player at this point. Like, he does anything you need.
One of the first players to really pick up the hyperflex support kind of style, where he can just play every single hero. Yeah. And then you have Funny Astro alongside him. If you know you're going to play Lucio full time, that guy is cracked on Lucio.
He is a very strong Lucio player, yeah. He can just win fights, just win maps, just on Lucio. Like Ilios and everything, just put him on the Lucio. There you go. That's some map win right there.
It's crazy. Anyways, now we've talked so much good stuff about the Gladiators that it's kind of crazy that they're like outside of the top 5.
Like there's so many good teams, but
the main thing is just the question marks around, is Dante going to like fulfill his potential, you know? And then the backline is a slight downgrade from last year, whereas a lot of teams have made huge upgrades to their support line. If you look at most of these, they're just crazy.
There's a lot of crazy.
Oh my god. So, like, that's why we kind of have to put the Glads kind of down here, but let's talk about Dallas next. So this team just came off of a championship, and then they've had to offload Fearless, Fielder Chio, and
Rio Doha as well.
Yeah. So, like, the core is still really good, right? And Rush is an amazing coach. They still have him.
Yeah. I think that's the key, keeping Rush.
Yeah. So, like, I know this team is going to be great, especially since they're in APAC. They're one of the strongest APAC teams. However,
I think they're going to get a lot of wins just because of that, but yeah.
the backline of MCD and Bliss. Now Bliss, he's looked really good in contenders, right?
Mm-hmm.
MCD though, I have a hard time getting behind in the same sense.
I would agree with that, definitely. So they go from Fielder, who... Fielder looked amazing playing for Paris on 200 ping. Like, Fielder is just a juggernaut of a player. He's really, really good. And you obviously wanted to keep him. You couldn't. That's unfortunate.
They just
yeah.
couldn't afford it, yeah.
Then you go to MCD, who... He's had some controversy in the past. He has played with Rush before, though, in this Element Mystic core. So there is some pre-existing synergy there, as well as he has shown flashes of being a strong flex support. It's just a lot riskier compared to what they used to have.
Yeah, if the Glads downgraded in the offseason, like Dallas had a major downgrade. It's like, these guys are good players, but like they're having to compare against Fielder Chio, some of the best supports from last year. So it's not really fair on them, but also you kind of just have to call it like that.
I will say, though, I actually have really high expectations for Bliss. Mainly off the fact of... So Chio, when he came to the Dallas Fuel from O2 Blast, Chio wasn't even like the main starter on O2 Blast, like when they needed him to play. That was Vindame. But once Chio got to the Fuel, he was able to kind of adopt that hive mind mentality, and Rush really, I feel, molded him into an insane player, like the best Lucio in the league. I don't think that's really a debate to be had or anything. So
yeah, he's crazy.
So we've seen Rush do it. He can, like, he's a very strong coach. Bliss has been playing since he was, what, 13 or 14? He's been playing in Korean contenders for a long time, and he has looked very strong at multiple heroes. So that's where I think it's different. Bliss is very flexible. I think that's where his value lies. Is Lucio, while obviously it is really strong, it's nothing like Chio's. Chio is a very strong Lucio player. But the value of Bliss is he can flex over to the flex support. He has a very strong brig. He can do all these things. So I think that's the value with Bliss here, and why I think he's going to be an amazing player.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few things. The DPS line is now only 2 players, Sparkle Edison, which, to be fair, is kind of what they ran most of the time anyways. But you are dropping a lot of options that they had. I mean, Gurio, it happens, okay? Not too worried about losing him.
Flashes, but he was a very inconsistent player. He just was never really able to make his way like as a consistent starter.
Yeah, Doha though, that's one of the better Sombras in the league.
Yeah.
And Sparkle Edison are not going to really be able to fill those shoes necessarily. I know Sparkle has had decent success on the Sombra in the past, but I mean, Doha was just kind of on another level.
And I know Doha would play over Sparkle to begin some stages. I'm not really sure why.
Yeah, it was probably some kind of comms thing.
Yeah, like getting
play
Sparkle
style.
into things. Edison, we actually talked about this the other day, but Edison, after stage 1, I guess, was never really pulled out of the roster. Like, they even put him on Genji and stuff. It was kind of weird, to be honest. And while Edison probably is not seen as the top player on this team, I think this is proven kind of by, like, the Team Korea, South Korea Overwatch World Cup announcements, like, no Edison there. But, I think Edison is a really strong player and is very flexible, which is kind of what you need these days, I feel like. Flexibility.
If you were going to go for just 2 DPS from the previous Fuel roster, it's probably these 2 guys, right?
It's got these 2, yeah.
Sparkle has really expanded his flexibility recently. His Tracer has started looking better and better, and that's really important in the league these days. So
And
That's
obviously
great.
Spark very strong at other flex support heroes. Like his Genji, his Genji's legit. As far as very strong, his Echo's strong. I just think Sparkle's a really strong player in that sense. The one fear I have for this team is for double hit scan. If it's a double sniper kind of thing, because I'm not sure how Sparkle would really fare there. But other than that, I think that this DPS line, well, maybe not to the highest level, like compared to other teams, can fill like any DPS combination that you need them to.
That's kind of the opposite way I think about it. These guys, in my opinion, are elite at maybe 90% of possible metas. It's just that maybe 10% of the time you're gonna end up in one of the like holes in their hero pools, and they're gonna look a little bit weaker in those metas. But most of the time they're gonna be great, like Sojourn Tracer or any hit scan tracer. You're gonna be fine. Flex DPS plus Tracer, you're going to be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Just the double sniper. I mean, Sparkle Hanzo has been... I don't think we've seen that in a long time.
No, Doha played a lot of Hanzo for them in Season 4. I remember that.
We're looking at Widow, Hanzo, Widow, Sojourn, like on the Circuit Royale type maps.
Yeah.
We did see some teams kind of force Genji when Genji was really strong, but...
Yeah, I think that Fuel will find a way to make it work because of just...
Oh, they'll definitely find a way to make it work. It's just they might not have all of the cards available to them that other teams may have an advantage there. And then MCD, and then losing Fearless. Like, I don't know if Dallas would win last season without Fearless.
I agree with that.
So that kind of goes into the same idea where Hanma is going to be great in a lot of metas, but there's going to be some times where you just maybe are missing the elite Winston performances that you used to have. I mean,
to be fair, though, when we saw Hanbin on Winston, he's pretty good. He dipped Reiner. I don't know, man.
Yeah, the thing is, we don't really know too much about that because it's such a small sample size of Hanbin playing main tanks because he's always had Fearless next to him for last season, so...
Like the Void argument, you know?
Yeah, it's very similar to Void, where he's an elite off-tank, one of the best on multiple heroes. Can he pick up the main tanks? We'll have to see. I think he will be able to do that. I think he'll look great. But until we see it, we can't take that for granted, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then maybe Rush can work his magic with MCD, but again, until I see it, I'm not going to believe it too hard.
Yeah. I think this team really comes down to playing around Hanbin, though. Like, as good as their DPS line is, as much potential as their support line has, it's kind of always been this way, but Hanbin is their strongest player. Like, he's the shot caller for the team.
Yeah, Hanbin's probably the only player on this roster that has contention for best in role. You know
I would agree with that. Yeah, you could argue, even though he's not as flexible as other tanks like Smurf or someone, Hanbin's peaks on the heroes he's good at is absolutely insane.
Like his Junker Queen was like several levels higher than everyone else at the time.
Yeah, his Junker Queen was it wasn't even close compared to anyone else.
Yeah.
His Zarya last year, no one was even close.
Yeah,
he literally won games by himself. His Sigma even, well, you know, some Sigmas might have had better numbers or anything. His Sigma was still really strong, and Dallas just found ways to make it work around Hanbin.
Yeah. Guy is crazy. However, I think between Fuel and Glads, I want to put Glads above them.
I would
understand. 8th, Glads.
I think that is fair.
We'll see what we think about Boston, but
yeah. Oh, I think Glads above Fuel is fair. Yeah.
It's really hard because they're both great rosters, but everyone's a great roster at this point.
Yeah.
We have tangible holes in Fuel's roster. Gladiators doesn't have that as much, you know, so that's why I want to put them ahead, along with a great Pro-Am performance.
Yeah. I also think, like, just APAC teams are at a disadvantage because they all have 5 players for the most part. Like, they're just, it's innately like just unfair to them, but that's kind of just how the way it is. Like, if you only have a 5-man roster, it's not going to look as strong.
The depth is going to struggle, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just how it is, I guess. So,
all right, let's look at Boston now. Okay, the DPS line: Striker, Decay, Birdring. These guys are elite. Smurf, one of the best tanks in the game. Lijigon, Izayaki, Twilight, one of the best support lines of last year and the year prior, plus Twilight. Like,
yeah.
The star power on this roster is kind of through the roof.
Definitely, yeah.
Now, why aren't they ranked higher is the question.
So, I'll just start it with this. I think their DPS line, compared to other DPS lines, is a bit on the weaker side. A Birdring, I think he looked really solid in the Pro-Am, honestly. His hit scan, like, it feels like he hasn't fallen off. And I think Birdring is able to be just that guy on hit scan, potentially. As long as he's not, like, I don't know, cock-blocked by a little pipe and he's trying to Deadeye a Winston. That'd be unfortunate, but...
Tough luck.
Yeah. I think Birdring, though, is the DPS here I am the most confident in. Decay, we saw him play Tracer. Decay is a very strong Hyperflex, like Yaki in a way, where it's like, Decay can play anything you need. If you need him on Tracer or Genji, he can do that. If you need him on the hit scan, on the Sojourner, and the cast, he can do that. And look, seeing how their roster is built right now, I think he is going to, like, he's able to focus more on those flex DPS characters like the Tracer, the Genji, the Pharah, all that, which will help him out a bit just to focus on specific heroes.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see
and
the DPS argument for being a little bit weaker than the other teams.
Mm-hmm.
The tank and support line, though, like, not much to complain about there.
Yeah. I think the one thing I will say about the support line, I think it is really nuts. It's just that having a 3-person support line kind of means that you have to... You still need some flexibility in-game. Like, you can obviously make subs in between maps or anything, but being able to flex mid-game, I think that is going to be very important for them. And just trying to find a balance there, I guess. Because
Yeah,
there are
that's
other
fair.
teams that are like, hey, my main support can play anything. So, like, we never have to make a sub. So it's like, if you wanted to, on Blizzard World, like, we saw a lot of double flex support there. If a team with only 2 support players wanted to go to, like, some Lucio comp, not that Lucio comps are, like, you know, weak on Blizzard World, it's just compared to the double flex as of what we've seen, it's not as strong. Like, there's not really much flexibility with a 3-person support line, I feel like.
Yeah.
In that situation of, like, just mid-game, just trying to find that.
Yeah, one example we had from the Pro-Am was on Havana, where teams would kind of transition from the double flex to the Lucio comps and then back to the double flex, depending on what point they were on.
Yeah.
Some teams were able to do that, like Florida Mayhem were able to do that, and some teams were not able to do that. And that was one way that Florida got an edge on their opponents. It wasn't a major thing, it didn't, like, decide the map, but it was definitely better than not being able to do that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Boston are not able to do that as well.
Mm-hmm. But I do think that their support line is... They're obviously really stacked. Lijigon, Izayaki, Season 3 and Season 4, especially Season 4, they were insane, like, just as a support line for the best team, honestly, across those 2 years, like, if you were to combine it. And then Twilight, I think Twilight's the best on in the world. That's what I saw from the Pro-Am, even though it's a Pro-Am or anything. Twilight's not washed at all. He is that guy on all.
He was doing as much as is physically possible on the character Ana.
Yeah, he did so much to keep Boston in games, it felt like. And I always think back to the match against Toronto on Havana, where it's just Twilight and Smurf just staying alive and just being able to hold them at first point, like complete the Fuller hold, really. And I thought that was just amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of that guys on Boston this season. I don't think we even mentioned Kalios. Do you want to talk about Kalios? He'll probably play the Diva Zarya.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why you want Kalios here is... I know that Kaluj mentioned it on Plat Chat once, but having another tank to kind of just bounce ideas off of, like, even though if they're never really going to play, just to see it be like, to get another point of view from like an actual professional tank player, it is going to be really helpful. As well as like, if needed to, like, Kalios is very strong on off-tank heroes. If it is strictly only off-tank heroes being played, they can comfortably play him somewhat. But just having someone to help out Smurf a little bit, I feel like is just going to make Smurf a bit better. Because last season, he was kind of just expected to play every tank. Like, he didn't really play Sigma or Diva at a professional level. Like, he's obviously, like, worked with people on it and, like, talked about it. Never really, like, performed at the highest level with it. But now having someone to kind of bounce ideas off of is going to be really helpful to Smurf, I feel like.
Yeah, that's definitely fair.
And then, I think Smurf is one of the most complete tanks in the game. Like, he's strong. He's shown that he is strong at a lot of heroes. So,
yeah,
no
everything that he's played in the league, he's been really great on.
Yeah. We didn't talk about Striker, I think, right? But I think Striker's role on the team is he's a very strong Tracer player. He's a strong Reaper. He doesn't really have too much flexibility, and I don't really see him playing too much Overbird Ring or Decay. But in those specific metas, Striker is going to be able to be strong, I feel like.
Yeah, the main thing for me is that in the program there was like perma Tracer, and we didn't see Striker at all. We saw Decay on that role, so that leads me to believe Striker's role on the team is only really to pick up the Tracer when Decay needs to play the second DPS.
That's what I kind of saw too, because from what I've heard and everything, Decay is kind of their main, like, he's kind of like grown into this team leader kind of role, to where, like, you know, he's calling in game and everything, and, you know, he's just a lot more confident as a player. So I'm really not against that. And maybe they just want to, you know, build some confidence in Decay. It is the Pro-Am after all, so yeah,
could be. So what do you think they stack up against the Gladiators and the Fuel?
It's a really good roster.
Yeah, on paper, they're definitely better.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that, but I will have to say, I think the coaches for Boston do not match up to Dallas or Glads at all, which is keeping them in this conversation.
Yeah.
They don't compare to the Glads three-headed coaching monster. They don't compare to Rush. That is why I would not feel as confident in Boston this season.
Yeah, player quality wise, they're elite. Like,
definitely, yeah.
But in the server, are they going to beat Gladiators? Are they going to beat Fuel? I think they're above Fuel.
I think you can put them above Glads as well. Just looking at their team, I think that Glads have a higher chance to overperform, though, while Boston has a higher chance to underperform, if that makes sense.
Does make sense.
Like, this should be a good team. It's just no play.
They're all great teams, man.
Yeah.
Alright. So I have Toronto at the bottom, Dallas, Glads, and then Boston going upwards.
Yeah.
Alright, now we have the top 5: Atlanta, Florida, Hangzhou, Houston, and San Francisco. What are we thinking here? You got to start thinking about Florida at this point. They just came off of a great performance. And like, someone is definitely looking to be one of the best tanks going into the season. He just plays everything at such a high level. Checkmate has come into his own. Merit has looked great. Chorong, Rupal have looked great as well. But I don't know if they stack up exactly to the rest of the teams around.
I feel like Florida only upgraded from last year,
Well,
which
sure.
like a lot of other teams did, obviously. I think Merit is a very strong hit scan player and is going to add a lot to this team. Checkmate, obviously, we saw his tracer really improve, and he was just really, really strong during what we've seen from him from the Pro-Am. As well as Sauna, when he did play the tracer and everything, like he didn't really get like too much playtime, but when he did play, he did look pretty strong. But I'm with you, like someone is this team, like he's like this team. He's the Florida Mayhem. He's their only tank player. You know, he's the memes guy. He dances after every game, and you know, he is the strongest player on this team, I feel like. He plays every tank at an elite level, kind of like a Smurf.
I think he might be better.
Yeah, I think he's stronger than Smurf on a lot of heroes, actually. And saying a lot. So yeah, I just think so highly of someone. And then Chorong and Rupal. I think it's crazy that Rupal, on a team with like, 4 Koreans, is the only American. He's still coming fine, and he's able to find a lot of success there. He won the Pro-Am MVP for a reason. He looked really strong. His Kiriko was nice. His Ana was really solid. And then Chorong being able to flex over to the flex supports is really helping Florida out a lot, it feels like. Because having someone who is able to flex mid-round is going to be very important for them this season, I feel.
Yeah. I'm taking a look at like all the tank lines that we have remaining, and I think I'd take someone over literally all of them except maybe Shock.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I think someone is a top 3 tank, honestly, in the league this season, and
I think just as a tank player, he might be the best, like top 1 coming in. But in terms of like tank lines, line, I feel like Max Junbin might give him a run for his money.
Yeah.
But
no, I can definitely see
he's
that.
absolutely diffing Donghak Hawk on any comp that isn't Diva or Ball, specifically. Fearless Gargoyle, like I feel like he matches Fearless. And then Gargoyle maybe is better on Sigma, but someone has such good performances on Sig as well. It's like hard to find a hole in his game. And he doesn't have to make subs to play different comps. Like, it's just so good, man.
Yeah. That's kind of the pro with like having a solo tank. Like, if they're able to do everything, it's amazing. But yeah, I think Florida.
Are they even the next team?
I'd argue maybe not, and I think
I'm thinking the same.
I think part of the reason why as well is like I think Gumba's a really strong coach. I think he is a really strong GM. Like it's a very solid organization.
Yeah, they've been nothing but professional.
Yeah, exactly. So who would you put 5th then if
I feel like we have to start looking at Spark.
I actually agree. Yeah, I thought Spark would be the next team, to be honest.
So Spark has like the most elite of elite Chinese teams that you could possibly make.
This is a Chinese super team. Yeah. Yeah.
Shy and Leave are like 2 of the best DPS.
Those are the 2 best Chinese players probably ever.
Yeah. Hard to argue.
Like you can argue. Okay, you can argue 2 of the top 3. Gushui's the 3rd. Like they're all on the same team. It's kind of ridiculous almost. Shy Leave as a DPS line, I feel like covers everything. I have no problems with that DPS line.
Yeah, for sure. Tank line, though.
Gushue in 20, formerly known as Elsa. Gushue is very strong on, the monkey, very strong. His Reinhardt is really strong.
This guy was putting up insane numbers in the playoffs last season.
Okay, his monkey's not just strong. He is monkey. He is
he is monkey.
He is monkey. His primal rage mechanics still are the best in the world, honestly. That guy's insane at monkey. The primals specifically. He obviously didn't really play too many of the off tanks or anything. So there is some fear there for like a mid-round swap. But you also have Elsa on this team, now known as 20, who is able to play the off-tank heroes at a pretty high level, I feel like. His Sigma is really strong, and his D.Va is really strong from the past. So we'll get to see what else he is strong at now.
Yep. Length's a monk, though. Probably the weak point of the roster, right?
I'm not sure about that.
You think it's the tank line?
I think the tank line can be seen as like not as strong. So Lengsa was on the Hunters a couple years ago. I believe it was it 2021 or 2020? I'm not 100% sure. I think it was season 3. Lengsa is a main support player who he was on Team Chaser, if I remember. He's a strong main support player for China, I feel like. And then pair that with Monk. People think Faraway is like really strong in everything. I think Monk is better, and you can kind of see that with how Monk was just playing over Faraway when they were both on Hunters in 2021 in Season 4. Monk is a very strong flex support, and I think he is going to be really solid for them.
No, I think he definitely had a great season last year, especially on Zen and Ana, from what I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Guy is elite on those heroes. Lengsa, I'm a little bit less high on than you, perhaps, but yeah, I definitely do rate Monk.
Yeah, but I think just their tank line, like Gushue on anything that's not monkey, can be serviceable. I'm not too sure. And then, 20, there are characters that I think they have a hole in as well. Like, they're not as strong as these other elite teams.
I guess there's a few heroes where I'm not really sure if either of them can play it at an elite level.
Yeah, I can see that argument.
Yeah. But historically, Monkey has been one of the more important tank heroes. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's definitely holes, though. You're right.
With this, though, this is potentially the strongest DPS line in the league. Not, like, individually, like, the best player or anything, but as a core,
as a duo,
these two are, like, they match up with anyone on any given day, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure.
I also think RUI, I think it's Rui. I think he is also a really strong coach and is the guy you would want to coach a Chinese super team. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But yeah, I think
they're below Florida still.
I really can see that argument, and I would agree with you. I think I'm not sure if it's recency by what we've seen from Florida, but
are they below Boston?
No, I
no?
wouldn't.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that. No way.
All right.
I can't do that.
So the top 4, I guess we can move on. Atlanta, Houston, San Francisco, Florida.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about Florida. You want to look at Atlanta next?
Why not? Yeah.
So Atlanta, they were kind of like super hyped up going into the Pro-Am. Everyone thought they were the favorites to win, and then they didn't. So
they were definitely upset by the Glads.
Yeah, it was definitely their match to lose.
Yeah.
Lip and Stalker have looked so good as a duo.
They have definitely, yeah. And I feel like this is Stalker's kind of like, not that last year, like, because he did get to play last year, but this is his first year to show like, yeah, I'm a superstar DPS player. And like we've seen it in scrims and everything, like the league scrims and all, and in the Pro-Am. But we're going to get to see if Stalker really can be a true flex DPS star this season. With Lip, I have no problems with this hit scan. Lip probably is just the best hit scan in the league, and I don't think that's a hot take or anything to say that. Just some like pure hit scan, like the snipers and everything, he's insane at. His Sombra, his Sombra's the best in the league, and it's not even close, honestly. Yeah, he can just play so many characters at such a high level.
It's kind of like he's the best hard hit scan, maybe, in the league. And then he also has the best Sombra on top of it, which a lot of hit scans do not have at all.
Yeah.
He also has a great Tracer the last time we saw it.
Yeah.
It's been a while, though, but we have seen it.
It's been a while. He probably won't have to play it much unless it's like some double, like Tracer plus flex DPS meta.
Yeah.
Which historically hasn't really happened much, but you never know.
Yeah, outside of Echo Tracer, which is like kind of real, but
yeah,
that depends on how strong Echo is as well.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Stalker definitely has a chance to prove that he is a very strong DPS player. I think Lip is just the best hit scan in the league. And so that's kind of why they're all the way up here. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the strongest DPS duos in my opinion.
Definitely.
Now, Donghak and Hawk. These guys are like both pretty strong players, right? Hawk is the only non-Korean on the team. So there's some issues about communication, but I'm pretty sure he's learning Korean.
And yeah, all the players are learning English and everything to make sure that communication is helpful there. So
yeah, there's definitely a few heroes where Hawk is just like super good at. Diva Doomfist come to mind. His Sigma's great.
Yes. His Ramatra looked really, really solid when he needed to play it during Pro-Am and everything.
Yeah, he plays really smart is what I noticed. Like, he just has such a big brain when he plays. Donghak, I've been a little bit less impressed by. His ball is obviously really great. The rest of it, I think, could use some work. But obviously we have a small sample size to go off of.
He also joined the team kind of late. He's been in and out of like, playing Overwatch before joining the Atlanta Reign. It was kind of a weird pickup for them, but there are definitely flashes of Donghak being a strong player. His ball especially is what comes to mind. That's kind of why you pick him up as a player. And I mean, I think his performance in the Pro-Am is a bit unfair. I think Reign were just trying to get him in and trying to get him to play like traditional main tanks and all that, just in case like the ball wasn't working, like he'd be able to have that flexibility. I think Hawk is going to be the main tank player for them for the most part, unless communication errors are a thing, which I mean they realistically could be, but as long as Atlanta Reign works those out, I think they will be fine.
Yeah, for sure. And then the support line of Vigilante, Fielder, Chio. If you're gonna pick 3 supports in the whole world, it's gonna be this, right?
Yeah, like it's kind of hard not to. So you have the championship-winning backline, the best backline last year, just as a group. Honestly, the best 2 at their like the top flex support debatably, and the best main support debatably from last season.
They're at the very least in the conversation. And then you added a mechanical freak Vigilante for double flex.
Yeah.
And then we've also seen Vigilante plus Chio a few times as well. So
they're definitely able to do it.
He plays like Zenyatta in such a way where he's almost flanking. Like maybe he is flanking.
He's a very aggressive player, but I also think he is a very strong player.
The thing is it works. He's like out here taking angles and forcing other teams to look in all directions, 360 degrees almost, just to like see him. And then he's in so far away that it's really hard to punish him. And like he just plays so smart. And he has the mechanics to back it up.
Yeah, and I mean, going into last season, I don't think it's a hot take to say Vigilante was the best support player coming out of Korea. And
yeah, incredibly hyped up.
If it weren't for him being underage at the start of the season, he definitely could have like been in like the Rookie of the Year conversation early on and everything. So yeah. Okay, obviously last season, the Rookie of the Year talk, like, okay, Proper was just the best player in the world. That's not really fair to any other rookie. It was a stacked class. Let's get this out of the way. It was the most stacked rookie class of all time. It's just that, you know, only one guy can win the award.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the Reign, though, on paper, this is an insane team.
Yeah, super crazy. The only doubts I have are in the tank role.
I can see that, as well as we get to see how Gator is as a head coach. So, you know, and they also have Wizard Young. So, you know, they have the pieces there. Just are they able to put it together is the thing.
Yep. I'm gonna look at Houston now.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
So Houston, another insane back line. Shu and Violet. Now, if you're gonna pick only 2 players to cover everything,
these are the two.
These are the two. Like
might want
the most flexible and like just individually talented players in the position. Shu was in MVP talks. Violet has been seen by many as the greatest to touch the game alongside Prophet. You know?
And yeah, there's definitely arguments for that. I think Shu is the only flex support you can argue was as good as Chio last year. And I think those two are just going into the season, they have to be seen as the top 2 flex supports in the league.
You mean Fielder?
Oh, who'd I say?
You said Chio.
No. Oh yeah, Fielder. Yeah. They have to be seen as like the 2 top flex supports. These are the guys you're gunning for. They play very differently though, so I can see like, you know, why there would be disagreements. Fielder's a more support oriented player who is able to do damage still. Like that doesn't like Fielder is able to get picks and all that, but Shu is just so aggressive on some characters and is able to make a lot of plays.
Shu will make himself a threat.
Yes.
And he's so good at that.
Yeah. But like you said, yeah, I think if you wanted a support line of just 2 players, you didn't really want to sub in and everything. These are the 2 players you probably want. I think Violet is the most flexible support just in the game right now. He kind of feels like that Lastro Gangnam Jin role, but he plays everything at such a high level. Like his Lucio really did improve.
Yeah, statistically, he had one of the best Lucios in the league last year.
Yeah.
With the eye test, maybe not so much, but statistically, it was like first in most categories. Like,
yeah, you know, he doesn't have a top 5 Lucio, but I think like the upside that he brings is just so much that it really doesn't matter if he doesn't. Like his Brig, honestly, is really, really good. He's a really solid Brig. And he can play every flex support character at a high level still. His Zen, absolutely crazy. His Kiriko even would look nuts. He is so aggressive on Kiriko, but it doesn't matter. Like, he's able to...
He hits the shots to make it worth it.
Yeah, exactly. He's undiveable, honestly. There were so many times during the program, a Tracer would just try to challenge him. Double headshot, yeah. You can't...
down.
Yeah, you can't do anything about that if you're a Tracer. Like,
yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I think the support line is insane on this team.
Yeah, it's like definitely the strength of this roster.
Yeah.
So we look at the DPS line of Happy Pelican. Pelican has really impressed me.
I would agree, yeah.
Happy has always been like pretty similar to Kai in my opinion. Like similar peaks, similar valleys, you know?
I think they're good on the same characters as well. Like the long range hit scan, kind of playing back and everything. That's what Happy is strong at.
Yeah, Happy might be a little bit more flexible, but they definitely have the same core hero strengths.
Yeah, and I think we saw some weakness with Happy on Sombra specifically during the Pro-Am, and I don't think he was honestly that bad. I just think compared to like his Cass or his Sojourn, like his Sombra's not that good. He's insane at other characters, so I'm not sure how I feel about it, like Happy being a consistent starter yet compared to some of these other top teams, but he definitely has the mechanical skill to do so.
For sure. Yeah. And Pelican could just play every flex DPS so well, plus Tracer. That was a big concern going into the Pro-Am. Who's playing Tracer for the Houston Outlaws? It's Pelican. He looked great. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, Pelican did look really solid. Okay, and Pelican, honestly, I'm of the opinion he can play anything. If you need him on Widow or Sojourn, I believe Pelican can do it, honestly. Double hit scan for them, like the fuel, like we had those concerns, like with Sparkle going to those characters. I have no problem with Pelican doing that. He's an absolute monster at the game.
Yeah, we're past the point of doubting Pelican. Like, just stop it.
Yeah, he is a very strong player, so, yeah.
On the tank line, we have Fearless, the finals MVP of last season, and Gargoyle. Now, Fearless, allegedly, is, like, elite on pretty much every hero, because Dallas was doing a lot of internal scrims last year, and apparently he was, like, keeping up with Hanbin on all the off-tanks. Now, whether that translates into actual matches or not, we'll have to see, because obviously you're going to hype up your teammates talking about them, you know?
Yeah.
So, we'll see. But they also have Gargoyle to fill those off-tank roles.
It takes pressure off Fearless because he's not used to traditionally filling those roles, so having Gargoyle to relieve some pressure. But I think Fearless is just such a good player, and it's going to be really cool to see like him as a more consistent starter, because last season he was splitting time with Hanbin. Like in Overwatch 1, that was the tank line to deal with. They were them. And only one of them could play, so you kind of had to pick one or the other.
Yep.
But yeah, Fearless, obviously his Winston is his best hero by far, but that's not to mean that like any of his other characters are weak. He is a very strong Doomfist still. I feel like his Bullet is still really strong. Reinhardt still really strong. He can do other things. It's just his Winston. That is what you play Fearless for.
Yeah, that's why he gets the big bucks, you know?
Yeah.
Gargoyle has had quite a break from Overwatch. He was really great in his first season in the league, if I remember correctly, on Florida.
Yeah, he was insane for Florida. I remember him...
Their double shield was so good. And then the D.Va also was really great.
Yeah. Oh, okay, technically Season 2 was his first year. He just played Roadhog for them, and, whatever.
Okay, yeah.
Season 3, though, he is the off-tank player. Sigma's really strong. D.Va's really strong. Fate's the main tank on his team, so, maybe you can credit that. Like, oh, he had one of the best main tanks next to him, but yeah, Gargoyle did look strong. Season 4 comes around. Florida altogether kind of struggles. Gargoyle still looks okay, just not as good as the previous season, and then he took a break last season, so now he's back.
Yeah. So the question is he going to be, or like, which version of Gargoyle are we going to get, is the question.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's the good one. I don't think he was ever bad.
Yeah, on this team, there's so many superstars around him. I think he's going to be able to focus on his specific heroes. This will be the Sigma for like those Widow maps. He can play the D.Va at a high level, I feel like, still. And yeah, he's just going to be able to focus on his heroes because he has one of the best main tanks in the league on his team in Fearless, who can play a lot of these other tanks, and they kind of can complement each other really well.
Yeah, for sure. The only questions I have about this roster is Gargoyle and Happy.
I agree with that, yeah.
Are they going to hit their peaks? That's all I want to know. Everything else is elite, no problems there. Honestly, I'm not even that down on Happy. I think he's really great as well. It's just
to be the top of the top.
Yeah, it's getting really competitive here.
Players in the league.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Right. I want to move on to our last team to talk about, the Shock.
Last, but best for last, you know.
Yeah. But, we are Shock Sims here. We put on the Shock skins on our game so that we can play like proper. Yeah.
It doesn't translate as well, but you know,
it's working just really slowly.
Okay.
It's like osmosis, you know.
All right, so I guess the first player to talk about, I guess, is Proper. This was the best player last year. He can play.
I can't see him slowing down.
Yeah, like I don't think he'll win MVP again because voting fatigue is a thing. And to keep up his performance from last season, that's really hard to do. That's an unfair expectation to have. But Proper is just so good.
I don't know, I think he might still win MVP.
From what we saw from the Pro-Am, actually, if he's just carrying the team again, like, it's hard not to. Give it to him again.
Yeah, if the meta favors him, you know, like gets him on his best heroes like the Tracer, he's gonna look great. Heesang is one of the best DPS coming out of contenders.
I'd say he's the best damage player coming out of contenders.
Yeah. So like
Heesang is insanely talented.
Yeah. Flex DPS?
Yes, he is. So he is a flex DPS
with a
player.
Tracer.
Yeah. Oh, his Tracer is actually insane. It's kind of sad that we won't get to see Proper and Heesang both play Tracer at the same time, because I mean, they're both really good. But to give you, like, when this guy was 15 years old playing on Element Mystic, this guy was pushing Choice A1 out of the lineup. Like, he was that good at flex DPS for just such a long time. He goes to Talon, absolutely insane on Talon, then goes to O2 Blast, absolutely insane. And, you know, that's why he's highly regarded as the best damage player for this year's rookie class.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, the only thing about this DPS line is that Proper will have to play the hit scans.
It's very Chengdu-ish from last season, I feel like. Where you don't want Leave to always be on hit scan duty, but like you kind of need to. Proper, I have a bit more faith in Proper to do so, which is crazy because Leave's nuts at the game, but I just think Proper's just so good at Overwatch that he will find a way to make it work.
Yeah. I feel like if you were going to sign one more player, it might be a hit scan to this team.
I would agree, yeah.
But as it is, these 6 players are great.
Yeah, there's really no complaints.
The tank line, Junbin Max, this is probably the best tank line in the league.
I would agree with that, yes.
They've just both looked so insane in Korean contenders, and they're so hyped up. Yeah, they're just him.
The Shock have the 3 best rookies on their team, and 2 of them are tanks, can't play at the same time, and that's honestly going to hurt them in value maybe, because, you know, they kind of have to share playtime, but both of them are so good at the game. It's crazy. But I think the honestly the insane part about the Shock tank line, it's not a hero like compatibility fit with these 2, and that's why one will play and one won't play. both of them play the same heroes. Jumping can play off tanks. Max can play main tanks. There's just so much flexibility, just these two as players. But obviously, like, if Ball is going to be played, you put Jumping in. That's no questions asked. If it's something like a Sigma or it's a Zarya being played, then okay, Max is really good at those characters. But like, if you needed Max to play like Winston, he could do that. If Jumpin needed to play Diva, we've seen he could do that. So I just think the flexibility is just absolutely insane between these two.
Yeah, Junbin feels really similar to someone to me, just like a little bit younger, maybe less developed, but the potential is there, you know.
His Ball, I don't think it's a stretch to say he's the best Ball Overwatch has ever seen.
Yeah, like when someone came into the league, his Winston was like really elite already. That's kind of the same way I see Junbin's Ball. Like, he's so flexible, but he does have that one hero where he's like one of the best in the world, if not the best. So like, he has that to like work off of. Yeah.
Whereas like Max, you know, obviously his off tanks are really strong, but he can also play other tanks at an extremely high level as well. So that's going to help him out a lot. Like, I know he was forcing Hog in contenders just because he wanted to, it felt like. He was just kind of just playing Hog, waddling around the map and all that. And no one could stop him because he's just insane at the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is an insane tank line. They don't, like, individually as players, they're not like, you know, the best tanks. It's just both of them together to form a tank line is crazy.
Like, there's no hero in the game where I'm like, oh, they don't cover that.
Yeah, like, yeah, there is no tank hero where it's like, oh, Shock will struggle if this character's meta. No, they won't. And it's because they have two of the most flexible and hyped up tanks on their roster.
Yeah, for sure. We can move on to the support line. Vindime and Finn. So last season, Finn had a really great start, I feel like. His Ana in the early season was like one of the best in the league already. And then towards the end of the season, I feel like he maybe slowed down a little bit. His Kiriko in the playoffs was really good, but it wasn't quite on the level of Fielder. But that's a brand new hero. With more time to work on it, he probably can improve that. Vindime, one of the more flexible rookies from last season, played an elite Lucio, and then was able to flex to the Zen when Sol needed him to. Flex to the Ana. He was really great on all the heroes that he showed. Has a great Brig as well. So, like, I do rate the backline, maybe a little bit less than I rate like the Rain backline, the Boston backline, the Outlaws backline. It's not like quite S tier for me, but it's definitely A tier.
They definitely have the potential, I feel like. With Finn specifically, there were moments like in tourneys and everything where maybe the lights were too bright. He had some weaker performances there. So it's just getting those out of him. Because what we've seen from Finn, like potential-wise, Finn has the potential to be an absolutely insane flex support. It's just, you know, putting together more consistent performances. And then, like you said, Vindime, for a main support player, he is very, very flexible. Like you said, he can play the Zen and all that. He was the reason why Chio did not play too much on O2 Blast when they were both in contenders. Vindame's Brig was very, very strong, as well as his other heroes. So, yeah, I compared to like other support lines that are near the top, they're definitely not as strong on paper. They have the potential to be better though. So, I think this is a very exciting support line.
For sure. All right, now we have to actually rank the 4 teams. Oh my god.
Okay.
Are we gonna go full simp mode and put Shock number 1? I guess we should start with number 4, right? They're all so good though. Let's see. Atlanta, the only weakness for me is the tank line. A little bit. Houston.
I think coaches is also like something you can kind of question Atlanta about, because compared to the other teams, I think their coaching staff is seen as like
unproven, perhaps.
Unproven. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. All right, Houston, probably the best back line in terms of like flexibility. I don't know though.
Yeah.
Florida has looked really great.
They also have probably the best individual tank out of everyone in this group.
Yeah. Merit Checkmate has looked really strong.
Yeah, they have looked like a very strong DPS line.
But are they going to stack up to Lip Stalker over the whole season? No. I want to say
yeah.
no.
That's definitely fair to say.
So
I think...
how much stock do you put on the tank role is how high I want to place Florida, I feel like.
I mean, I think being the solo tank, like, just having no backups on a position, that's going to be really important for that specific player to be strong. And I think someone is he's the only solo tank of these 4 teams. And I think having a guy to, kind of just like bounce ideas off of definitely is helpful, but just talent-wise, he's absolutely insane, and it's kind of hard to put him down for that.
Yeah. So we look at the DPS lines. Which ones do you rate the highest? Probably Atlanta. Lip Stalker is my #1 choice for DPS lines here. And then I'd probably say Shock, Florida, and then Outlaws.
I'd probably agree with that. In terms of flexibility, I think the Shock can struggle potentially if Proper's forced onto certain things.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. Okay, how much stock do you put specifically onto the coaching staff, like the support cast of a team?
It's
Probably
kind of
not
tough because
players, but I feel like it's definitely still
there's certain coaching staffs where we know them to be great, being Shock and Mayhem, right? And Outlaws have Junkbuck, right?
Yeah.
Rain, they are unproven, but from what we've seen, they've looked super coordinated. They have a game plan. I don't know though, because like, just because we don't know doesn't mean they're gonna be bad, So
exactly. Yeah.
It's like, do you give them the benefit of the doubt, or do you say, well, Krusty, Junkbuck, Gunba, they've shown success in the past, they're probably going to continue that. I think it's probably, you rate the other 3 higher than Rain in the coaching aspect, just by default. But I don't know if it's that big of a gap, especially when you look at Atlanta's roster and it's so good.
Yeah. This is over the course of the season, correct?
Yeah.
How we think they'll do? Okay.
It's like how strong the teams are. Not necessarily like win-loss record, but like...
Okay, yeah. Because I think like... Let's see. I think to begin the season, going in, we're going to see Florida and Atlanta specifically be able to put together some wins, look like strong teams. But I do think that Houston and Shock will both be able to heat up as the season goes along because of these coaching staffs and their ability to adapt to the meta, kind of figure things out.
Yeah.
I think
it's a hard decision.
The 4th and 3rd spot, I think it's Florida and Houston.
I think that's probably correct. In what order, though? Because Houston has the better back line. And then Florida has the better tank line outside of maybe Winston specifically, but I think that's more of an even matchup, if anything.
Yeah.
And then the DPS, I might take Florida over Houston.
I think Houston's 4th and Florida's 3rd. I don't know if that, like, I understand, like, hey, like, we shouldn't put too much stock in the pro-am or anything. And it's honestly not even that. I think Florida's team has just leveled up so much. They made the upgrades they needed to player personnel-wise.
Yeah, in all the right places, too.
Yeah, definitely. Like, Merit was absolutely insane last year. Chorong was an elite main support last year. Okay, maybe not elite, but, like, he was next to elite. Like, he was right there with, like, some of the top main supports. Like,
yeah, I someone the best tank in the league, perhaps.
Potentially, yeah.
And then RuPaul has looked really strong as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it. Alright, Atlanta and Shock then?
Do you just want to be biased losers? Look, Bad Pachamari already put Atlanta first. We don't have to do that.
Easy. Alright.
Yeah. Alright, Shock first. GG!
We're the best. We're the best. Not biased, etc.
I think
the minor problems with the support line I have with the Shock are less than the problems I have with the Atlanta tank line. And it's not even like problems, right? It's just they're not the best of the best, you know?
And then also, like, even though we shouldn't put too much stock on it, I think... So I think Atlanta has a better DPS line just altogether than the Shock by the slimmest of margins. But I think the coaching diff for the Shock is enough to output that and to, like, counter that and more.
Yeah, the coaching in the tank line, I feel like, is
and it's not that, like Gator's improving and everything, but Krusty and 9K have done this for years.
Yeah.
And they've been insanely good.
They invented coaching.
Yeah, like, their coaching tree has grown. Like, Toronto, Kasaurus, that's a Shock coach. Houston, Junkbuck, that's a Shock coach. Like, they're absolutely insane coaches. I think by the end of it, they will be able to figure out how to be the best team.
Yeah, and like the only thing we've seen so far is them at like 4 a.m. on 200 ping, and they've still looked pretty competitive.
Yeah, like they took Houston to 5 maps. I think it is more of a Houstonable moment than anything. Like,
yeah,
definitely shouldn't have, but you know, they still did that. As well as, like, all these players, they were all separated, not able to, like, you know, they were at their parents' house, you know, staying up till 4 a.m. playing video games. Like, it's tough.
Wasn't there one game where Junbin was playing the first 2 maps, and then they had to sub in Max for game 3 when it was tied because Junbin's mom said to go to bed?
No, I think that was just a meme. I think
was that a meme? Okay.
Yeah,
well,
it's just
more
meme.
fun if you believe it. So
it is funnier if you believe that. Yeah.
Anyways, I think this is our ranking. We have Shock Atlanta, Florida, Houston, Hangzhou, Boston Gladiators, Fuel, Defiant, London, Guangzhou, Seoul, Dynasty first, then Infernal, Washington, Titans, Dragons, New York, Valiant, and then Vegas. Then Chengdu is like, well, we don't even know, man. Nobody knows.
What, till we meet again, the Chengdu
Rippin'
zone.
pepperonis.
Yeah.
Alright, thanks for watching. Do you have anything else you want to say?
You too, man. You too.
You too? Alright, you too.